Hello there, we are live with Impact Q&A. We're driving, we need a fancy title for this.
Car Q&A?
Car Q&A. So every week we're going to do a Q&A on past Friday's message as we drive somewhere. Today we're driving to the Garden State Plaza Mall, so we got some time. So I'm joined by one Aaron Gruenthal, who has a couple questions about the message on Friday, which was apologetics regarding the existence of God. But before we do that, do you have Easy Pass?
Yeah.
Okay, because we're about to go through the toll. Great. All right, Aaron, what's the first question?
So, first question. Friday I asked why God allows natural evils. I know that we have free will and we're allowed to sin because that's what Adam and Eve chose. But why does God add on top of that tornadoes and sickness and things that aren't caused by humans? And Friday, it sounded like your answer made it seem as if man is at fault because he's not good enough to defend himself from God.
One of the things that I mentioned on Friday is that a lot of the damages and the deaths and stuff that happen during these natural evils, such as in Haiti you have the earthquake, unfortunately was due to man's inability to create a structure that would prevent the most amount of deaths. If the same earthquake happened in Japan, they wouldn't have as much damage because they're prepared and they have the adequate resources and whatever. So it's not really God's fault for those things. Moreover, all the evil that's in the world, period, at some degree or in some form is traced back to the original fall, when God created everything perfect, and then when Adam and Eve sinned, sin entered the world, and so did death and everything else. Even natural evil can be traced, even though it may not be my sin in particular. All of our sin is what creates evil in the world, period.
Yeah. So I understand that. The one thing that I was hung up on though was when you were saying how they weren't able to build a structure good enough to protect them from hurricanes or earthquakes. And the way that sounds to me is like, imagine somebody saying, alright, I'm going to throw this rock at you, and if you're not fast enough to dodge it, then it's your fault for being hit by the rock.
Well, that's assuming that it's like impossible to do that. I mean, it's not like God is throwing rocks at people. That's not what I'm saying. But in the same case, God doesn't intervene when someone, God doesn't necessarily intervene every time someone shoots someone with a gun.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fact that happens is God's allowing free will and people to make evil decisions, and that's what happened in the first place. So, I'm not saying that God is behind the gun. I'm saying that God allows the gun to happen for reasons unbeknownst to us. But we have to remember that whenever we accuse God of being unjust, He gave us our sense of justice in the first place. So if He really was unjust, He wouldn't give us a sense of justice in order to judge Him whether or not He was just. But if we are appealing to some standard of justice and saying that God isn't upholding it, then what is that standard? And if it's not God, then what is that? So God being the source of all justice, we have to give Him the benefit of the doubt that even if we don't see in the moment why certain evils occur, God has good reasons for allowing these evils. And if there's at least some good reasons for allowing these evils, then He must be justified in doing them. Not saying that it's not a good thing. In fact, God Himself stepped into our world to put an end to suffering once and for all. So God, who went through the most suffering than anyone when Jesus Christ died on the cross, Himself is the great high priest. He's the one who can go in between God and man, because He is God and He is man, and He knows what it's like for us to suffer because He Himself suffered. So God, who is the ultimate source of justice, is Himself just, has good reasons. Just like if you have a surgeon who needs to cut you open in order to take out the cancer, we don't say that's a mean surgeon, and we tell him that he's doing a poor job just because he has pointy tools. any tools in order to take out the cancer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good question.
Alright, so the other question that I had is, I'm not sure if you went over Friday, why do you have to give God the name, like God, Jesus, like our God? Why is it this God and not something like an atheist would say, like the flying spaghetti monster?
Say that again?
Like, why fill in the gaps with the God of the Bible and not just anything else that you can think of with the same power, like the flying spaghetti monster?
Right. Well, you could. It's just, you have to ask yourself, what is the best explanation for what we see in the universe? You know, what God would be the best fit? And the flying spaghetti monster couldn't be, because the flying spaghetti monster is made of spaghetti, and spaghetti is a physical thing, and physical things did not exist before the universe existed.
Yeah.
So if it's immaterial, then it'd have to be something beyond or surpasses spaghetti. So then you go to the question of, okay, which God fits this description of being immaterial, timeless, spaceless, and has enormous amounts of power and intelligence.
Alright, and so that's a good answer.
Yeah.
What else?
Which, by the way, if you look at a lot of Greek mythology, it's like God's battling it out and like angry and frustrated and whatever, and then he just kind of just pops out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so the third question that I had, which I was just thinking about, which I like right now, when has apologetics been important or come in handy for you?
That's a great question. Apologetics. When has apologetics been handy for me? Apologetics has been handy for me in evangelism. I think mostly with friends, but it also does help when you're street evangelizing or talking to people you don't know. But the people that you really connect with, I think, are most able to understand where you're coming from, because they know you don't really have an agenda. It's not like you're just talking to people to like up your score with God or something, but you really do care about your friends. And so when you explain that it's not just a hunch, but you have like good reasons to believe why you believe the things that you believe, I think people are a lot more apt to it, and surprised often, because people think that our faith is mindless and our faith is based on just a hunch or a feeling. But then when you explain, no, there's good reasons for what we believe, people take it a little bit more seriously, and then they watch your life and say, okay, is this person living out what they preach? And if they live out what they preach, and they're also rational in what they believe, then maybe there is something behind what they're saying.
Yeah. Sounds awesome.
Thanks. So this has been Q&A in the car. What are we calling it?
I don't know. It's like car Q&A or Q&A car. Decide which end you want to put that on.
Q and car. I don't
Sounds
know.
foreign.
This has been an Impact Q&A in the car. We really need like a catchy name or something. We'll call it Dead Mouse Coffee Run. And then parentheses, Impact Q&A in a car.
AKA Impact Q&A in a car.
This is your host, Alan Kahn, and guest.
Aaron Grito.
See you next time.